Hey guys, it's Jasmin, and in today's video, I'm going to give you some tips and insight if you happen to struggle with a shaky or strangled voice, or if you've been diagnosed with spasmodic dysphonia or have researched that and think that might be your issue with your voice. This video was highly requested because back at I want to say the end of 2017, as a part of my 30-day stress relief series, one of the EFT or tapping guided sessions was to help alleviate or make better a shaky or strangled voice if you happen to suffer from it. And I've gotten quite a few comments on that video and messages and emails requesting this video be made. So I figure, why not make it a part of the daily December videos? And so here it is. Before we get started, if you are new to this channel, then welcome. We put out a video every week, typically on Saturday, but for the month of December, we're shooting for a video a day. And this can be about everything from cat stuff, feline nutrition, kitty care and health, to human things like what this video is about, as well as recipes and workouts and a whole lot more. So if you want to get notified whenever a new video goes up, just make sure to click that subscribe button below, along with the little bell icon here on YouTube. And if you're watching this on Facebook, just follow our page, Cat Lady Fitness. All right, so just because, I don't know, maybe a few of you are wondering, well, what are your credentials when it comes to this anyway? I've never been diagnosed with any kind of voice disorder. However, there have been times in my life where I've noticed that my voice changed. It became shaky or strangled, and it does every now and then. And I did the research, and I can almost guarantee that if I was to have gone to a specialist, or maybe even still go to one to this day, they might give the diagnosis of spasmodic dysphonia. And I'm sure if you are struggling with or have been diagnosed with SD, or if you feel like you have a really shaky or strangled voice all the time, then it feels like it's just all the time. And it might make you feel even worse and worse and worse because that's all you think of. And then the anxiety builds. And this is one of the reasons why I made this EFT video. And it's proven so helpful from so many people. I've gotten messages regarding how helpful it's been. So I really do suggest you go try that out. That's actually going to be my first tip, is to use a technique like that. And if that technique does end up helping you at all, then hopefully it can justify that perhaps what's going on with your voice is mostly stress-based and not some kind of permanent diagnosis or a physical, mechanical issue that you can't fix otherwise. It shouldn't paralyze you. It shouldn't make you think less of the words you're actually trying to communicate across. That's one of my most important tips, actually, is to focus on the actual words that you're saying as opposed to how they're going to sound. Because just that shift in your focus, that conscious change in what you're focusing on to what you're trying to communicate instead of how it's going to sound, that in itself can really make a big change. Some of these things are functional. Some of these are things you can do, but other things are more kind of like a shift in your mindset, a shift in what you're putting your focus towards. So step one, I would say, is to do the EFT technique, that tapping technique, to kind of let things simmer down a little bit. And then step two is to just remind yourself of that saying. I want to focus on the actual words I'm going to say and the words I'm trying to communicate and the message I'm trying to communicate, even if it's just something like ordering a coffee or, giving a speech. Focus on your words. My next tip is to take a look at your nutritional factors. The worst thing that you can do if you struggle from a shaky or strangled voice, if you struggle from stress, is to overdo caffeine or stimulants. And this includes, obviously, coffee. This can include some teas. This definitely includes pre-workouts, because there's a high chance that if your heart rate is up, then your muscles are already feeling tight. If you're breathing heavy, if you're taking shallow breaths, and trying to have a conversation with somebody, there's a strong chance that it's going to be worse in those instances. So something I do suggest, if you already know that you're sensitive to stimulants, caffeine, things like that, is to try cutting it out. Try cutting it out. I know coffee lovers, maybe switch to decaf for a little bit or try cutting back quite a bit. See if that helps. Keep a shaky voice journal and write everything down. Write down when it happens. Write down the time of day, all the detail you can. When you write things down like this, it's easier to help you identify what the triggers could be. If you can avoid those triggers, then you can potentially avoid the consequence, which in our case for this video is a shaky or strangled voice. Another thing nutritionally that I was going to suggest is to cut back or cut out dairy because it causes an inflammatory response within the body, and it also causes phlegm buildup in nearly everybody. And usually if you cut out dairy, especially milk and yogurts, you'll notice a difference when it comes to the phlegm accumulation in your throat. I've had clients notice this within a day. My next tip is to reflect upon any overall stress factors or triggers. And these could be situational. For example, whenever you're dealing with a certain person or whenever you need to speak in public, those are more situational, but they can also be more substantial. And this is something else I'll ask clients before maybe they were diagnosed with some kind of immunity disorder, before they gained a lot of weight in a short amount of time. I ask them what life event, what happened that you can think of right before this started. And every single time they can identify a life event that was substantial that happened. Look at your life, look at when your shaky voice started, and try to reflect upon what happened right before. Did somebody pass away? Did you struggle in a relationship? Did you happen to go through a traumatic event? That helps you to kind of remove its permanence from your identity and associate it with an event, associate it with something that happened outside of you that perhaps influenced that reaction within you. Maybe you didn't process the emotions in a way that would help them go through your body and actually process and accept and move on from them. And this is why you struggle with that tension within your body. My next tip is paying attention to your quality of sleep. And this might seem really basic. A lot of this stuff is actually, there are things I talk about in my first book, The Holistic Fitness Starter Guide. If you haven't gotten enough sleep, if you aren't getting enough sleep, if you're not consistently going into deep sleep, if you always wake up feeling exhausted, sleep is when your body resets. Sleep is when your body recovers. My next tip is to make sure that you're getting in the proper nutrients. And this definitely goes hand in hand with my first book, but make sure that you are getting in magnesium, especially. B vitamins are also key when it comes to your nervous system, muscle function. You could also look into taking manganese, which is good for things like tremors, which a lot of the time these are considered voice tremors, or a lot of times people who struggle with this have a tightness in their neck as is. And all of these are typically in a quality multivitamin. So if you're not at least taking a multivitamin, you can just try one out for a little bit, see if it helps. L-theanine is an amino acid that is also great to take. And I actually take it whenever I drink coffee because it helps to combat the more, I guess if you want to say, negative effects of the caffeine, especially if you're caffeine sensitive. Other supplements or things you can look into include different adaptogenic herbs. So one of my favorites is Schisandra. That's one of my favorite hot drinks I'm going to have in an upcoming video. There's also ashwagandha, very, very popular. Another tip is to drink warm drinks that are soothing on the throat and avoid cold drinks, especially if it's something where you have to talk, if you're getting ready to give a speech, if you're getting ready to get on a phone call. It will help relax the muscles in your throat to have a warm drink, perhaps with some honey in it, to help soothe things and make them feel a little bit better. And speaking of adaptogenic herbs and things like that, acupuncture, I believe, is really worth trying because it's Basically, EFT, the technique that I was telling you about that I have a video on, is the emotional version of acupuncture. But acupuncture itself works with the meridians of the body to unblock certain things that could be causing you pain or issues like shaky voice or spasmodic dysphonia. Also, honestly, a lot of the benefit from acupuncture, besides the needles, which is what everybody focuses on, is the fact that you get to lay there and relax and breathe for 45 minutes to an hour, depending on your practitioner. And sometimes it's just about having that time to relax and breathe and basically meditate, and that will take you away from the busyness of the day, perhaps from whatever is causing you anxiety. My next tip is making sure that you are breathing appropriately and properly, and that means not taking shallow breaths. Shallow breath is when you breathe from your chest. And along with this, a good tip to give is to find a vocal coach. When you go to a vocal coach in order to be a better singer, they also teach you proper breathing techniques. And those kinds of breathing techniques are very useful and effective when it comes to day-to-day life, when it comes to speaking more clearly, making sure that you're breathing properly, which should be through your belly. And it works to lower your heart rate, to relax your body, and in turn, to help alleviate any stress you might be holding on to as tension within the body. Now, my next tip is mainly for the ladies, and that is to pay attention to if it's worse at a certain time in your cycle. And this is considering you're not on any contraceptive pills, not on IUD, no contraception, because that messes with your cycle as is because you don't ovulate. I've noticed that my voice is not in its best condition before I get my period. A couple days before, whether it be sometimes videos, whether it be voiceover work, whatever it may be, I'll purposefully schedule them not in that time frame because I know to expect that my voice is a little bit more susceptible to break into a little shakiness. It makes sense if you think about it due to perhaps the depletion of minerals, the other processes that our body is prioritizing, and maybe the more susceptible we are to stresses. So let me know if you've noticed that as well, because I am just super curious if anyone else has. My next tip is to try the muscle tensing technique. Ideally, if you're laying down, to tense all of the muscles in your body as strongly as possible. Your neck, your arms, your legs, your feet, just tense up your body for 10 seconds as hard as you can, and then relax and take 5 good deep belly breaths, and then do it again and do that 3 times. And by doing so, you're exhausting and then relaxing any pent up tension or stress within your body. My next tip is massage. Trigger point massage can be very, very helpful. Or if you know someone experienced, a licensed massage therapist or the like, who is familiar with the scalenes, which are these kind of tendon-like muscles going down your neck on the sides of the areas, that as well can help relax any tension around the area and help to bring you some relief when it comes to your tight throat. My next tip is to pay attention to and improve your posture. And this is something that I specialize in with my training clients. This is something I like to focus on with myself. To do so really helps because you want to keep this space around your neck area. If your chin is always down, that is going to make things way worse. I used to be a dancer, and we would have to walk with our chins up. And I always noticed that allowed me to breathe better. Simply just working and having your chin down, you notice there's more tightness there. And in this day and age, it's especially prominent because everybody's looking down on their phones. I'm the weirdo that's looking up on my phone like this just to keep my neck straight. Another tip along with that is to avoid wearing things that are tight on your neck. So this can include turtlenecks or certain collars. It can include chokers when it comes to jewelry. You might want to opt for wearing certain things that keep your neck open and loose and just simply having more space. My next tip is to hold some kind of totem. Just hold something, maybe that you can fidget with, or something that can act as a pacifying item. This is great to have, obviously, if you're on phone calls or things where people aren't seeing you, but even if people do see you, you can hold on to a pen. If you're in a meeting with somebody, you can hold on to papers. One of my favorite things I actually have right here. This, my clients are probably really familiar with because I like to gift it to them, and I believe it's still for sale on the website. This is actually an acupressure massage ring, and first of all, it just feels really good on your fingers. Something discreet like this, or even holding onto a pen, can bring you that little bit more ease to take some stress away. My next tip is to remind yourself that you are your own worst critic. Talk anyway. Say what you're going to say anyway. The world is a fast-moving place, especially in this day and age. People are so self-involved that if you're worried about what people are thinking about you walking into a party, let's say if you have some social anxiety, chances are the majority of other people are thinking the same thing and worried about themselves and what other people are thinking about them. So if you put things into perspective that way, it takes a lot of pressure off. It brings you back into reality, and it could help to appease any lingering anxiety that you might have left. My next tip is to never let a slight voice quiver or something that you notice that you don't like ruin the entire conversation. Take a deep breath and move on. If your voice quivers a little bit when you're having a conversation, if it gets a little break, if it gets a little shaky, leave that for what it's worth and continue on the conversation. Don't let that little pothole in the road of the conversation make you completely swerve off and hit a tree. And that leads us to our next tip, I think, a little bit, and that is to spend more time doing the things that you love and that you feel confident in, and basically spend more time in what I call your flow state. This is something you do that makes you feel like time passes quickly, where you feel confident, where you feel like you're in a higher vibration. Usually it involves creation rather than consumption. So it's when you're creating something. It could be playing music. It could be out for a walk in nature or for a run. When you spend more time doing things that allow you to be in your flow state, it will definitely transfer and translate to other areas of your life. And people notice. Your chin will automatically be held higher. You'll automatically get more space. You'll be alleviating stress. Most importantly, and I guess I'll leave this as the last tip, thank you for sticking with me throughout this whole video. I'm really trying to make them shorter. But that is, do not allow the sound of your voice to paralyze the message that you have to give. You deserve to be heard just like anybody else, just like I do, just like my neighbor does, just like I guess my cats do, especially when they're hungry. So I hope that these tips and advice were helpful to you. I hope that maybe they helped bring awareness to something you hadn't thought of before, or that you can from here come up with a pre-plan to do maybe before you go into an interview, before you have a phone call, in order to prepare and do the best you can to have the best control over how you sound, to have the best confidence. Take those deep breaths, do the tapping, the guided tapping video before any situation where you might need it. Make sure that you're getting in the right nutrients. Do your best to get your best sleep. Make sure your mind gets into a better state where you can allow yourself to gain that confidence and be in your flow state. All right, guys, if you did find this video helpful, please click that thumbs up below, because that helps me know what you like to see and also helps other people potentially get this video in their suggested feed. If you'd like me to expound on anything that I mentioned in this video, just leave me a comment below and let me know. And remember to subscribe if you want to be a part of the Cat Lady Fitness family, because I would love to have you. All that being said, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.